Today we're going to have a short class, probably just 1.5 hours. So many students cannot make it today. Also we are hosting a security conference, so I have to leave for the conference. So that's why we're having a short class today. But still, several things we need to discuss. Several announcements first. So midterm, the first midterm scores have been posted. So you can access it through that very awesome system called Great Scope. Did anyone use that?
I tried, I couldn't log in.
Really?
You would reset your password on the email that you sent us.
Okay.
I followed the link in your email and it didn't work.
Didn't work?
I mean, it looked like it changed the password, but then when I tried to log in, it failed.
Okay. Probably because of your email errors or something? I don't know. Because I noticed that at least one third of the students already accessed their paper, everything. And we also posted the score on Blackboard, so at least you can see the score, yes. Okay. So we're going to have next week we're going to have the second midterm. It will cover email forensics and malware forensics only, and there will be 60 minutes, not 80 minutes. And the project one will be posted next week, and the project one is a group project. So two of you are supposed to develop a small program together, and it's due at the end of this semester. But I suggest you to start early. So this is a very small project. Probably you just need to write this 200 line of code. That's my estimation.
How many projects are there going to be?
What?
How many group projects are there going to be?
Just one group project, and there will be 2 more assignments.
Okay.
So I don't know what we call assignment 1.
Is this the project that's worth 30% of our grade?
I don't remember how much. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah. So this is just the first, but only programming project. So you can use C++ or C or Java or Python products. So we'll first discuss midterm 1. So the lowest score was 34. Maximum was 95. Median is like 65. And you can see the normal distribution there. So you didn't cheat, which is good. Usually I would just, based on everyone's performance, I would just curve based on the final score. I would not curve each exam or exercise. So usually I would give more than 30% A, something like that.
Professor,
Yeah.
at least one page cheat sheet in the next class.
What?
One page cheat sheet.
Okay. For the next exam? I don't think you need that, but for the final I can give well.
Theory questions are difficult to remember.
Okay. The next one is only email forensics and malware forensics. There were those questions you don't have to remember a lot of things, but more like you need to think. But for the final, I will allow that. And let's go through the midterm 1. So the first question is. We discussed drive slack, and the drive slack include RAM slack and file slack. So let's say we need to create a large file that includes 6,525 characters or bytes in the FAT file system, and the operating system reserves 32 sectors for each cluster. So the question is, how big would be the size of the file stack? And next question is, what is the size of a RAM stack? So we talked about this in class. So basically, fat system is used by Microsoft, and also in SD card or other removable storage. So because how fat allocated the disk space, there will be some drive stack. Basically, there are some unused space in a cluster between the end of an active file and the end of the cluster. And there could be, when operating system load those files into the memory has to be aligned, and that's why the end of the file and the end of the memory, there will also be a slack. So we give an example in the class. So let's say we have a file like 5,000 characters, and we save on a 64 sector cluster. So the operating system has to at least reserve one cluster for this file. Even though this file is only 5,000 bytes, the operating system will reserve 64 sectors, which is 32,768 bytes for that file. So the unused space will be more than 27,000 bytes. And that is on the disk, and that is called the file stack. And if the operating system loads the file to the memory, the operating system doesn't have to reserve 32 clusters. Sorry, 64 clusters, because the memory doesn't work in clusters. They work in just the sectors. So 10 sectors would be enough to cover 5,000 bytes. That's why there will be 120 bytes wasted in the memory, and that is called the RAM stack. So going back to, we also, in the class, we talked about in the RAM stack, there could be some interesting information like passwords from previous process, some file fragment could be interesting. Now the new process can access, but it's actually from the old process, something like that. So going back to our question, so the size of the file stack will be 32 sectors times 512 bytes. That is the size of one sector minus the size of the file. So the answer would be 9,859 bytes. And the size of the RAM stack will be, so you need to do some calculation here. You need to decide how many sectors can actually cover this file size, but you do not waste more than one sector. So in this case, 13 sectors would be enough. And you minus times 512 minus 6,000, you get 131 bytes. So the next question is list and explain 4 rules of evidence that we discussed in class. So basically they are authenticity, admissibility, completeness, reliability, and accuracy. So what I see, I saw the answer of this question. Some of you reached this one with the security goals, CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So basically those are the goals of security, and these are the federal rules of evidence. So the third one, we gave you the MBR and ask you to interpret this MBR. This is what we did in class exercise 2, I guess. So I think we already discussed this one, so I will just skip it. So by the way, in this grid scope system, you can see all your papers. You can see all the rubric items, so you know how you get the score. If you have that.
Are the answers on there too?
Yes, you should be able to see that.
Correct.
Yes. So you never put the rubric items there, so each rubric item is like the correct answer. Hopefully you got this one. You didn't get this one.
I
never logged in as a student, so I think you should be able to. But if you don't, then and I will also post these slides too. So. The fourth question, what is logical and sparse acquisition? So logical acquisition captures only specific files of interest to a case. For example, you are only interested in the image files, like JPEG, or only interested in the executable files. And sparse acquisition additionally collects fragments of unallocated data or deleted data. So basically that's two types. And question 5 give you the coordinates of so the CHS coordinates of a partition, and ask you to calculate the starting address in logic block address form, and also the ending address. So I already give you guys the formula here, but still a lot of people get this one wrong. So did you guys use a calculator, or if you use a calculator, how can you get this one wrong? Well, the tricky one probably is the last one. The partition size would be the ending address minus the starting address plus 1. So a lot of people missed that plus 1. So from sector 1 to sector 2, how many sectors are there? There are 2, right? 1 and 2. So 2 minus 1 plus 1, that's the right answer. A lot of people got 2748. 4 steps of a forensic process. So basically, easy to remember this because it's AAA first. Acquisition, authentication, analysis, and report. So a lot of people was confused the forensic process and the rules of forensic. So those are things you need to remember. You don't really think much, but you need to remember. Okay. So there are some multiple choice questions too. First one is what involves recovering information from a computer that was deleted by mistake or lost during a power surge or server crash. So the key here is what was deleted was not intentional. So, but in forensics, we are talking about recover things that was intentionally deleted. So the correct answer to this one is data recovery, not computer forensics. Most of you get this one right, even though I think we didn't really discuss this one, but everyone has common sense. So the second one, a criminal case follows 3 stages: complaint, investigation, and prosecution. So the correct answer is D. The third one, evidence custody form helps you document what has and has not been done with both the original evidence and the forensic copies of the evidence. The fourth question, little endian puts the least significant byte of the number in the first storage byte, and big endian is reversed. And in history, there are some other mixed way to represent this. I don't remember the name for those, but I believe right now we are only using either little endian or big endian. A bit stream image is also known as a forensic copy. For computer forensics, data acquisition is the task of collecting digital evidence from medias. One disadvantage of proprietary format acquisition is the inability to share the image between different vendors' computer forensics tools. We discussed about this, and also it's kind of common sense. The most common and flexible data acquisition method is disk to image file copy. That's what we did in exercise 1, where we use DD or FDK to make an image, and also for your assignment 1, you are using FDK to create an image from a disk, and you save that as an image file. You do not directly put that into another disk. So this is the most common way. And a cylinder is a column of tracks on 2 or more disks. Four more questions. Computer forensics involves obtaining and analyzing digital information for use as evidence, and the Fourth Amendment protects everyone's rights to secure in their person, residence, and properties from search. Consistency check looks at the last partition and compares its ending location with the end of its parent volume to determine where else evidence could be located. So basically, the reason to do consistency check is adversaries, they may have changed the metadata in the disk, so they may not match. So by doing this consistency check, usually sometimes we can find something abnormal from there, giving us additional information if we can find additional information somewhere else. So the first sector of a hard disk to store information about partitions, and we looked at it last week. Not only the information about partitions, but also some code there, and that sector is called MBR, Master Boot Record. Volume is the collection of addressable sectors, and the partition is the collection of consecutive sectors in a volume. So basically, this is exam 1. Any questions here? So for exam 1, we have a lot of concepts. Yeah.
Are these slides available online so we can look all the way through?
I will post this online after class. Thank you. So in exam 1, we have a lot of concepts. For the exam 2 and the final, I will reduce number of questions like this, more like questions, more like we will do a manual forensic analysis. We're not going to do use the tools. It's kind of like the in-class exercise, but you are doing it manually. So today we're going to cover the next topic, which is image forensics. And I prepared the exercise for image forensics, but we're not going to do it this week. We're going to do the exercise next week. So today we will just discuss the basics. So we are going to discuss several types of graphic file formats, and usually the graphic files and also video files, also those all kinds of multimedia files like audio files. They are used with some data compression algorithms. So when they got transmitted through internet, we can have smaller files and a faster speed. So we are going to talk about how to locate and recover graphic files probably next week before the exercise. So we all know image files, when they display on our screen, no matter it's LCD or the CRT screen, that displays in pixels. So the pixels, they are the basic picture element in computer. It's the smallest unit that can be displayed on a screen. So this very simple graphic could just be black and white or any other two colors. So we can use white, we can use 0 to denote white, and use 1 to represent black. So in this case, each pixel only has 1 bit. So something like this. So all the zeros denotes white, and all the ones denotes black. So this could be the binary of the bit stream of an image, and this image will look like something like this. So zeros will be white, ones will be black. So how many bits we use to represent a pixel is called bit depth. So 1 bit, we only have 2 colors. 4 bits, we have 16 colors. And 8 bits, we have 256 colors. And if we use higher bit depths, so basically the image file size will get bigger. But we will also have more colorful images. And here is one example. This is just a 1-bit image, and you can see the size is 600 bytes. And if we use 16 bits, the size will be more than 10,000 bytes. And there are many models to represent the colors, not only. So in this example, we're talking about 8 bits to represent all 256 colors. And there is another way is to use red, green, blue model. And if you use the Photoshop before, this is you may notice that this is not the only model we use in real world. There are several models. And this one is color. So basically, it's an addictive model combine varying amounts of these 3 colors to represent the color of each pixel in an image. So basically, each individual pixel represented in an image, we have 3 values. One is the intensity of red, another is the intensity of green, and also the intensity of blue. So if red is more intense, the color perceived is towards red, obviously. So in this case, if 1 pixel is represented in 24 bits, so actually it has 3 parts. It has 8 bits for red, 8 bits for green, and another 8 bits for blue. So for each of those 8 bits, they can represent 1 to 255, basically 256 possible values for this each primary color. And if you use Windows Paint or Photoshop, you're probably familiar with this. And also all the websites, browsers, they're using the RGB model to represent the colors. So usually, so in your CSS, in CSS, what does CSS stand for? Cascade style sheet. So from there you can specify the color for the text or images, and you use the RGB format. So there are basically 3 types of graphics files, and the first one is bitmap image. If you use Windows Paint, usually they use a bitmap image. And another one is called vector graphics. So when we talk about here, we're not talking about the color anymore. We're talking about how they store each pixel. Or for vector graphics, they're not really based on pixels. So bitmap images, they're based on pixels. So each pixel is represented by the same amount of bits in the file. And vector graphics, they are dynamically generated based on some mathematical instructions, equations. So basically in the vector graphics files, there will be a lot of formulas. And when you open that, they will dynamically generate the image based on those formulas. And if we combine them together, we have Metafile graphics. So basically some parts we will use bitmap. Other part we will use vectors. So bitmap, like I said, they are basically just a grid of individual pixels, and sometimes they are also called raster images, but in some books they separate it, because in some books they say raster images are kind of like a special kind of a bitmap image, and the pixels are stored in rows and they are better for printing. But in other literatures, they do not really separate them that clearly. So when people say bitmap image, they may also refer to raster image as well. Sometimes they are just interchangeable. But so basically the quality of the bitmap or raster images depends on a lot of things. The number of pixels per unit, and the unit can be measured by inch. So how many dots per inch, and that each dot is a pixel. And the higher resolution equals to sharper image, and also the number of color bits used by each colored pixel. So for vector graphics, it's different. So they use lines instead of each pixel, each dot. And they only store the calculations for drawing lines and shapes. And the most popular one could be Illustrator, and also CorelDRAW is also very popular. I don't remember which company used that. I think I used that before in college. I'm not sure if it is still there. So here is an example. This one is a raster or bitmap image, and this one is a vector image. And also PDF uses a vector image. So if we're talking about a bitmap image, if you zoom in, you can see edges like this. That's because this is one pixel. And if you zoom in that, you are just making that pixel bigger. So you can see edges like this. But for vector images, no matter how much you zoom in, you always see a very smooth edge there. Because when you zoom in, the dynamically recalculate that. Basically, it's just a math equation. So we recalculate that. They're not really stored in pixels. So there are some vector types. For example, if we want to store a circle in the vector format, we only need the radius, center, line style, and color. And so when the software actually loads the vector image, it will dynamically fill the type, color, and display that on the screen. So usually the advantage of those vector files is they have a smaller file size, and the resize doesn't change image. Sometimes that could be very useful. And they can easily modify the parameters. Can be easily scaled, rotate. Imagine rotate here would just be a parameter. If you rotate bitmap file, then basically you have to move all the pixels to another position. But here, it's just probably there is a degree or something. It's just a parameter. You just need to change the parameter. This is how we store that. So some of the graphic files combines the raster and the vector characteristics together. So basically, some of the PDFs, if you scan something and the scanned photos, they will store that in a bitmap. But some of the text, they can do an OCR and replace with a vector image. So those kind of files are hybrid. So obviously, when you enlarge those kind of files, the bitmap part will lose the quality, but the vector part will always be very sharp. So there are many standard bitmap file formats, like GIF. We know GIF has animations, so basically GIF just have many BMP files or JPEG files. And also there are metadata to show, to represent when we should display the next JPEG file. So that's basically GIF files. And JPEG is the most popular one used in internet, and also all the cameras, they can generate output JPEG directly. And there are TIFF and Windows. If you use Windows Printer, the default one will just be Windows BMP. And the standard vector files, those basically used by all kinds of professional tools, like illustrators. And there are other non-standard file formats. For example, Photoshop, they use their own format, PSD. This one is not standard because only Photoshop uses it, and they have to use it because it records all the history. If you use the Photoshop before, you know that it records all the history in that PSD file. And in Photoshop, there are multiple layers. You can even hide some layers there, and obviously, bitmap files cannot record those layers. They're just bit. There's no layers, and they do not record the history how you change it. So with this PSD file, technically you can generate all kinds of other files. You can export it to all other files because it just have more information there. So there are many ways to compress image files, audio files, or any other multimedia files. The reason is usually we want to transmit them through internet. And all the compressions, there are two types. One is called lossless compression. Another one is called lossy compression. So basically, in a lossless compression, the reduced file size, it will reduce file size without removing any data. So it could be based on Huffman encoding or LZW encoding. So basically, there is a way to recover the original file from the compressed file. So all the popular tools like 7-zip, WinZip, or gzip, they will use some this kind of algorithm or encoding. And another way is some lossy compression. So basically, they do not only do compression, they will also remove some of the information, some of the bits from the original multimedia file. So this is very popular for huge images and also for videos. So because I use GoPro, so every time I export the GoPro video out, you have to choose what kind of encoding you want to use. And it will take very long time, like 30 or 40 minutes, for them to export the final video. That's because they are not only doing compression, they're also doing calculation there. They need to decide which bits they want to discard. So probably there are some smart algorithms. They need to decide probably in this frame, those bits are not that important. So in the final video, we're going to discard those bits. There are some very smart algorithms to do that. That's why it takes very long time. Even a video like 1 hour video, it may take more than 1 hour to generate that video from the source. There are tools like LZip, we use this kind of algorithm. And obviously, lossless compression will produce the exactly same a replica of the original data after it has been uncompressed. However, lossy compression typically will produce an altered replica of the data. So most of the image files we have and also we acquired from criminal's hard disk, they are generated by some kind of a digital camera. So we need to understand the format used by digital camera. So first of all, most of them support JPEG, but they also support raw file format. So if you use DSLR, usually they will support a raw format. And the raw format is just a faithful record of what is recorded by the sensors. So there is no compression, there is no encoding, just the raw data there. So what usually photographers do is they will use raw format in the camera, and they use their own computer to other tools like Photoshop to process those raw formats to generate JPEG. They will not use the built-in feature of JPEG of the camera, because imagine how the camera can generate JPEG. The camera captures is just the raw data. Then there are some in-camera digital signal processing units, kind of like a specialized CPU. And those CPUs will use some kind of algorithm to process those raw files and generate JPEG. But obviously, they're not the best choice we have. We can just use the raw file and use our computer to do that, which is much faster. And we have all kinds of algorithms to choose, which will generate better JPEG files than the camera can generate. So the raw format maintains the best picture quality because it's just what the camera record in the first place. And in the modern digital cameras, they use the EXIF, exchangeable image file format, to record the meta information of where this picture is captured and how this picture is captured. This is very useful for forensic analysis. So I have one example here. So this is the EXIF information from a picture. So from here we can see the camera model. It's a Nikon DSLR, and the resolution, and the focal length, everything, and the aperture, everything. So those kind of information is not really necessary in any image because it will never be displayed. But for forensic analysis or for photographers, when they see this kind of information, they can review the scenario, how this picture was taken there. So, and also, this one doesn't have a GPS, and also exposure time. And this one doesn't have a GPS. The modern EXIF also has GPS information where the picture is taken. So that's the last one of my slides, actually. So next week, we're going to do the exercise. We're going to try to extract some information. The story is more like some company employee trying to steal some sensitive company information and stick it out. And you need to use forensic tools to try to find out how they are doing it and what they are sticking out is actually a picture. From a picture, you have to analyze all the hairs, everything. I will talk about the details next week. Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
Would it be possible to put all the lecture activities or any class activities on Blackboard so we can
That's not what we did, right? No. Okay, I will put everything there. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. For next week, we will only cover So basically, each of you will create an image. And you will follow the steps, create files, delete those files. Then you are going to give the image to your teammate. So he or she will analyze your image, so you don't analyze your own image.
Okay.
Yeah, make sense? Yeah.
So the template you gave us is only for part 2. We should have a task one on the template too, right? Okay, at the top of the template it says part 2. Right?
Oh, wait, the order was wrong. Let me double check that.
Okay.
You should have everything. The no part?
No, part 2.
Okay.
Extension, the name is content.
So basically, my idea is as long as you do the exercise, you should just be able to. Yes. So for those who need a spot.
So for the test, you said you'd be like a manual in-class exercise, not
Yes.
rules?
No, yeah, for example, I will give you binary code we discussed in class, and I ask you, what is this code doing? Or if what you learn from here, something like that.
You said email forensics.
Malware forensics. 2 weeks of malware forensics. Cool. See you guys next week.